If you're perceived as unattractive to women, you're more likely to be in favor of arranged marriages rather than an attractive man. This is self-explanatory. You can't force attraction, but you can force an arranged marriage, whether that's through religion, family, or societal pressures. You see, arranged marriages are the polar opposite to allowing women to freely choose their partner. However, there is an in-between, and that middle ground revolves around financial dependency. Many decades ago, it used to be extremely common for a woman to depend on a man for financial support. However, that is becoming less and less common, especially in today's age. Without even diving into the surface level wage gap debate, we could all acknowledge that a majority of women in Western countries could now financially provide for themselves. In fact, the amount of female graduates is now starting to exceed that of males. And of course, companies prefer hiring females over males with precisely the same credentials because it's beneficial for their ESG scores. Another topic for another day. Of course, all of these semantics can be debated. But the main point here is that it's very clear that women can now financially support themselves without the aid of a man, and hence that middle ground is now dissipating. Women are now choosing men based off of other factors other than income, especially in comparison to women decades ago, especially when they had limited rights. However, there still are many places in the world where women are still not granted these same rights. So, first, let's take a look at a list of the countries with the best economic opportunities for women. Now, after we take a look at this list, we're going to look at another list. And this other list, you'll start to see somewhat of a correlation. Of course, it's not going to be one-to-one, and you can look up from any source these two lists, and you'll see somewhat of a correlation. It won't be one-to-one, but it'll be there. Now, you must understand, I'm not telling you all this to virtue signal or push some agenda on you. Trust me, this video is going somewhere contrarian. It's a very unique topic. So, now that women are less financially dependent, they're less likely to choose someone solely based off of their finances. Instead, they're choosing their partners based off of factors such as face, height, personality, etc. And thus, the offspring of these couples will carry those same genes and therefore also be more attractive relative to a couple that was binded by finances rather than attraction. You see, the whole reason that we find other people and other organisms find other organisms attractive for non-survival based advantages such as hair, eye color, noses, etc., could all be traced back to the sexy son hypothesis. You see, our genes want to continue replicating forever. It's more than just about survival. Hence, it's important to our genes that we pass down attractive genes to our offspring, so then our offspring will be successful in reproduction too.
So it's not only natural selection pushing on them by predators and environmental factors, but there's also sexual selection pressure moving towards larger and larger feathers. So why would the peahens choose males with large feathers and ornaments? Darwin himself had one theory, and that's one of the two main hypotheses for this question. He thought, because of arbitrary beauty standards, different in every species, he thought the peahens choose the brightest and the largest feathers just because they, quote-unquote, like them. They just fancy them. They like bright, shiny, symmetrical colors and feathers. So it's purely arbitrary beauty standards. As a peahen, if you then all of a sudden choose to go against the grain and not choose a mate with the brightest and largest colors, which will mean your sons all of a sudden do not get the genes for beauty, and your sons will leave less offspring. So it is a runaway effect, a positive feedback loop, also called the sexy son hypothesis. Yes, evolutionary biologists love their funny nicknames.
You see, we're just survival machines carrying the genes for replication in the future, as Richard Dawkins would put it at least.
To make bodies which have what it takes to preserve those genes and pass them on. And so I use this phrase survival machine. A body, an individual, is a survival machine. And that's by far the most powerful way of interpreting what an individual organism is. An individual organism is a throwaway survival machine for the self-replicating coded information which it contains. And the fate of that coded information is crucially bound up with the fate of the body in which it sits.
But as you can see, it's important to our genes, at least, whether this is subconsciously or you're consciously aware of this, that we do find people attractive, even for non-survival based advantages, for the sake of our genes. This is the sexy son hypothesis. And so, when women are choosing mates for reasons that are not related to finances, it makes sense that the entire population's overall attractiveness will consequently also increase. Selective pressure in Western countries is making life for the average to below average looking man very difficult. And it's only being amplified by apps like Tinder, Bumble, Instagram, etc. However, the upside to this is that future offspring are now going to be less likely to face the same difficulties that many men are facing today, those of which do have implications. On the contrary, there still are many places in the world where the cycle is the polar opposite, which involves arranged marriages. You see, everywhere in the world, the self-delete rate for men is higher than women. However, there is one country in particular where this doesn't seem to be the case. Of course, you can make your own conclusions regarding this. Now, why is it a good thing for an overall population to be more attractive? Here's a misconception to start. Even if you're surrounded by 3 out of 10s, as a 4 out of 10, that doesn't exactly mean you're going to be okay. And it's because you can't force attraction. You see, what's happening to a lot of men is that they're in this position, and thus they can't fulfill their purpose in life. As we've gone over in prior videos, that is to pass down your genes, and of course, most people will not consciously recognize this because they're normal individuals, and they don't think about this weird stuff like we do. But obviously, if you can't fulfill this purpose in life, this could potentially lead to some pretty drastic implications. Now, while I'm not going to spell out precise examples, I'm sure a lot of you guys are smart enough to infer precisely what I'm saying. It's for this reason that the FBI might be watching this video, and it's for this reason why Reddits that revolve around inceldom also get shut down very quickly. It's why videos like this tend to never grow, because the algorithm pushes them down. It's because of the correlation to certain events, we'll say. And it's obviously very upsetting for me to acknowledge this, because I understand that the majority of people are not like that. But this is just a law of probability when given a large enough sample size. Even if there's only one bad apple per tree, the correlation is still present and quite obvious when there's thousands of trees. And so the way to reduce the amount of these bad apples by the law of probability is to have there be less trees. And the only way to achieve that, obviously, is through many years, a long period of time of natural selective pressure. Eugenics was never the right answer. This is already occurring naturally in Western countries. However, there are other parts of the world that seem to be moving in the opposite direction. It might not be over for you watching this video right now. I don't know where you lie, but at the very least, I encourage you to try to enjoy your gift of consciousness, rather than your days being filled with resentment towards others for something that frankly isn't even their fault. And stop feeling bad for yourself. Nobody's gonna help you. Nobody else is gonna feel bad for you. At the very least, I'd encourage you to look smacks, get into shape, make lots of money. Yeah. I'll conclude by emphasizing that I think it's very important to acknowledge the truth, despite how ugly it could be, rather than ignoring it. This way, you could better move the pieces on the chessboard. Life is unfortunately very unfair, but nobody's going to feel bad for you. Stop pitying yourself. Try to make the best out of the hand that you were dealt in life. Of course, you might be at a significant disadvantage compared to others around you, but hey, perhaps you could see, perhaps you could hear, perhaps you could walk, perhaps 2 out of the 3. If that's the case, try to pick up a hobby. Go for hikes, learn to surf. You'd really be surprised how enjoyable life could be with these simple copes that are accessible to the majority of us. Look, I can't change you, I recognize that. I just hope I could be somewhat of a positive influence. Who knows? Maybe I'm that one straw that finally broke the camel's back.
I think one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You know, like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true.